When I was little, the sound of my father's car was the sound of safety. It began as a low hum, then a growl, then that sweet high-pitched whine as he shifted into third and the world outside became nothing but streaks of light. I used to press my forehead against the cool window and imagine we were outrunning the sun. My daddy drove too fast, but back then, that was my favorite thing about him. He said the road had a pulse if you listened close enough. Every Sunday, he'd wash the dust off his old Mustang, polish the chrome until it caught the sky, and whistle while he worked. I'd hand him the sponge, pretending to help, while my mother stood by the porch with her arms folded. She smiled, but only with her lips. The kind of smile that holds something back. I didn't know what, not yet. Dad would wink at me and say, "Ready to fly, champ." I'd nod so hard my neck hurt. Mom would call out, "Not too fast, please." He always laughed. Always the same easy laugh, the kind that made you think everything was fine. Once the car hit the open road, he came alive in a way that scared and thrilled me. The wind tangled my hair. His hand drummed on the steering wheel in rhythm with the engine's growl. "You feel that?" he'd shout over the noise. "That's freedom, son." And I did feel it. Freedom, joy, invincibility. But now, when I think back, I wonder if it was something else he was chasing. Mom hated those rides. She said the car took more of him than she ever could. Sometimes, when he'd rev the engine in the driveway, she'd flinch, like the sound itself bruised her. "You'll wake the neighbors," she'd say. He'd grin, lean across the hood, and kiss her cheek. "Let them hear what love sounds like." She never laughed at that. Even at 6 years old, I could sense their rhythm breaking. His laughter got louder, her silence got longer. He came home smelling of gasoline and something faintly sweet, something I didn't recognize. When Mom asked where he'd been, he'd tell her about new routes, new roads. "You know me," he'd say, "I get restless." One evening, while the sunset poured through our kitchen window, I caught them mid-argument. The words weren't clear, but the tension was sharp enough to taste. My mother's hands trembled on the counter. My father leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, jaw tight. When he saw me watching, his whole body softened, and he smiled again, that same boyish grin he wore behind the wheel. "Hey, champ," he said. "Want to go for a drive?" We drove until the street lights blurred into ribbons. He talked about nothing, the weather, a song on the radio, a story about work, but every few minutes, he'd glance at me like he was checking if I still believed in him. I did. Children always do. That night, we stopped on a hill that overlooked the whole town. The air smelled of rain and burnt rubber. "Someday," he said, "you'll understand why I can't stay still." His voice was soft, almost apologetic. I didn't know what he meant, so I nodded anyway. He looked out at the horizon, eyes far away, and whispered, "If you stop moving, life catches up." The engine purred in the dark. I didn't understand it then, but that sound, the one I loved so much, wasn't safety. It was escape. And as we rolled back down that hill, headlights carving through the night, I remember thinking how beautiful the world looked when you were going too fast to see it clearly. The first time I smelled her perfume, I thought it was my mother's. It drifted through the car one afternoon, a mix of jasmine and something sharp, like citrus. I asked Dad if Mom had used his jacket. He paused for half a second too long before saying, "Maybe." The lie was small, almost invisible, like a crack beneath fresh paint. But once you notice a crack, you start seeing all the others. After that day, our drives changed. He started picking me up from school more often, just the two of us. We'd take longer routes home, winding through roads I didn't recognize, stopping at diners where the waitresses already knew his order. He'd smile at them the same way he smiled at Mom. I didn't think much of it. He was just friendly, I told myself. My daddy had that kind of charm. People leaned toward him like plants seeking sunlight. One Saturday, he told Mom we were heading to the hardware store. But the highway we took wasn't anywhere near town. The sky was a clean, blinding blue. I remember him humming to the radio, tapping the wheel, glancing at his watch. We pulled into a small cafe by a lake, one of those places with peeling paint and metal chairs that screeched when you moved them. She was already there. I noticed her red coat first, bright as a wound against the dull afternoon. Her hair was dark and neat, her smile too easy. She waved, and my father's whole face changed. The stiffness in his shoulders melted away. For a moment, I thought he looked younger. Happier. He told me to stay in the car. "Just 5 minutes, champ," he said, ruffling my hair. "Get yourself a soda from the cooler." Then he stepped out, shutting the door too gently, like he didn't want to wake something sleeping inside. From the backseat, I watched them through the windshield. She touched his arm when she laughed. He leaned in when she spoke. The air between them was alive, humming with something I didn't have a name for. My chest felt tight, like I'd swallowed a secret. They disappeared around the corner of the cafe. I counted the seconds. 5 minutes turned into 20, then 40. The soda grew warm in my hand. A fly buzzed against the glass. I started to feel small, so small it hurt. When they finally came back, she adjusted her coat, and he avoided my eyes. His keys jingled in his fist like he was nervous. "You ready, buddy?" he asked too brightly. I wanted to ask who she was, but his voice made it clear I shouldn't. The drive home was different that day. He didn't hum or tap the wheel. The radio stayed off. The car filled with the heavy kind of silence that feels like punishment. At a red light, I caught his reflection in the mirror, jaw tight, eyes somewhere far away. The sunlight hit his face just right, and for the first time, I saw the lines there, the exhaustion. The sadness. When we pulled into the driveway, Mom was standing at the window, her arms crossed. "He told me not to tell her about the cafe. It'll just upset her," he said. I nodded, but something inside me broke for the first time. That night, I lay in bed and listened to the hum of his car engine fading down the road again. The same sound that once meant adventure now sounded like running away. I didn't know it yet, but that red coat would haunt me for years, proof that love can disappear quietly, one secret at a time. It happened on a Thursday night. The kind of night where the air feels heavy, like the sky is holding its breath. Dinner had been quiet, too quiet. Mom barely spoke. Dad barely looked at her. When he asked if I wanted to go for a drive, I hesitated for the first time. But habit is stronger than fear. I grabbed my jacket and followed him out. The headlights carved 2 white tunnels through the dark. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a ribbon of silence. I watched his hands on the steering wheel, steady, confident, but restless. Always restless. He didn't turn on the radio. He didn't speak. The only sound was the hum of the tires on asphalt. After a while, I asked, "Where are we going?" He shrugged. "Nowhere." We passed empty fields, gas stations with flickering signs, and clusters of trees that looked like shadows holding hands. I wanted to ask about the woman, the cafe, the lies, but the words stayed trapped in my throat. Then, without meaning to, I whispered, "Does Mom know?" He glanced at me, sharp and startled. "Know what?" I couldn't look at him. My fingers picked at a loose thread on my jeans. About the woman in the red coat. For a long time, he said nothing. The car's engine grew louder, his foot pressing heavier on the gas. The speedometer climbed, 60, 70, 80. The world outside blurred again. I gripped the door handle, heart racing. "Where'd you hear that?" he asked finally, voice tight. "I didn't hear it," I said. "I saw her." The silence that followed was worse than yelling. It was thick and sharp, like broken glass in my lungs. Then he said, almost to himself, "It's not what you think." His hands trembled just once before tightening around the wheel. "Then what is it?" I asked. My voice cracked. He slammed the brakes. The tires screamed against the wet pavement, the world jerking forward before slamming still. For a heartbeat, everything was frozen, the wipers ticking, the engine panting, his breath uneven. He put his head in his hands. "I didn't mean for you to see that," he whispered. I didn't know what to say. I'd never seen him look small before. The man who raced thunder looked defeated. "She made me feel like I was still somebody," he said, his voice breaking in half. "Your mom, she deserves better than me. I didn't want to hurt her. He stopped, searching for words that didn't exist. "I just wanted to feel alive." Rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder. The drops streaked down the windshield like tears. Neither of us wanted to cry. I thought about Mom at home, sitting by the window, waiting. I thought about the perfume, the lies, the way he always drove faster when things got quiet. And for the first time, I didn't see a hero behind the wheel. I saw a man running from his own reflection. He looked at me, eyes wet and desperate. You won't tell her, will you? I wanted to hate him for asking. I wanted to shout, to make him feel as small as I did. But instead, I just shook my head. No, Dad. He nodded, started the car again, and this time he didn't speed. The engine idled low, like even it was tired of pretending. We drove home in silence. No music, no laughter, just the slow rhythm of rain on metal. When we pulled into the driveway, he didn't move. He just stared ahead, knuckles white. That night, for the first time, my father didn't drive too fast. And somehow, that made me miss him even more. The car sat in our driveway for weeks after that night, collecting dust and silence. Dad stopped taking me for rides. He stopped taking anyone for anything. The Mustang, once his pride, became a ghost, its tires sinking slightly into the dirt, its paint dulled by rain. Sometimes, I'd find him sitting inside it with the door open, engine off, staring at nothing. Like he was listening to a song only he could hear. Mom didn't ask questions anymore. She cooked, cleaned, and hummed to herself while folding laundry, pretending not to notice when he came home late. Her eyes were calm, too calm, like still water hiding deep currents. I used to wonder if she already knew about the woman, the secrets, the cracks. Maybe she always had. Life didn't shatter after that. It just slowed. Conversations became polite, meals shorter, the house quieter. Dad still smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He'd lost something, some spark that used to make him bigger than life. I saw it fade a little more each day, like sunlight bleeding from an old photograph. Years passed. I grew taller, quieter. I stopped waiting for him to call me champ. He sold the Mustang eventually, saying it was time to move on. But sometimes, when I walked past the garage, I'd swear I could still smell the faint trace of gasoline and rain. The last time I saw him alive, we were standing outside a small diner halfway between my college and home. His hair was thinner, his hands rougher. He told me he'd quit drinking, that he was trying to be better. I wanted to believe him. When we said goodbye, he hugged me tighter than he ever had before. Drive safe, he said. His voice cracked just slightly on the word safe. He died 3 years later. Heart failure. No crash, no blaze of speed, just a quiet ending, the kind life gives to men who've finally stopped running. After the funeral, Mom and I drove out to the lake, the one with the peeling cafe where I'd first seen the woman in the red coat. The place was gone, replaced by a convenience store and a parking lot. But the wind still smelled the same, sharp, metallic, full of memory. We sat there for a long time, watching the water. I asked her if she ever hated him. She smiled faintly. No, she said. I just wished he'd learned to stop before he lost everything worth slowing down for. That night, I dreamed of him again, behind the wheel, the world rushing past, headlights stretching into infinity. But this time, I wasn't in the passenger seat. I was the one driving. And I wasn't speeding. Now, when I'm on the highway, I still hear his voice sometimes. You feel that? That's freedom, son, echoing somewhere in the wind. And I answer quietly, yeah, Dad. But it's also the sound of letting go. I've learned that people like him don't fall in love with other women first, they fall in love with movement, with the illusion of escape. They chase speed because stillness forces them to see what they've broken. My mother loved differently. She stayed. She endured. She let time do what speed never could, teach patience, carve wisdom, build forgiveness from wreckage. Sometimes, I drive out to the old hill where we once stopped on that stormy night. The road's cracked now, weeds pushing through the asphalt. I park there and listen to the silence he left behind. The wind brushes my face, and for a moment, I can almost hear the old Mustang again, roaring, alive, untamed. My daddy drove too fast, I whisper. But he taught me how to slow down. Then I start the car, check the mirrors, and ease forward, not to run, not to chase, just to keep moving, steady and sure, toward whatever comes next.